When people plan a European trip, they think of Paris, Rome, maybe Barcelona. Almost nobody mentions Hungary, and that might be one of the biggest travel mistakes you can make. Hidden in the center of Europe sits Budapest, a city so stunning it seems impossible it remains invisible. You have probably scrolled past photographs of it without knowing. A golden parliament glowing against the Danube at night. Thermal baths steaming in winter air. Here is what nobody tells you. Hungary is 43% cheaper than Paris. You can eat at Michelin-starred restaurants for mid-range prices. Stay at 5-star hotels for what basic accommodations cost elsewhere. On April 12, 2026, Hungary made international headlines when elections ended Viktor Orbán's 16-year rule. The world is finally paying attention to Hungary, and this is the perfect moment to show you what has been hiding in plain sight all along. Hungary's story is written by the Danube. In 1873, it became the formal divider between two cities that chose unity. Buda rose on western hills as a seat of kings and castle courts. Pest spread across eastern plains where merchants built their living. For centuries, they stood apart with different identities. Then, they unified, and the Danube became Budapest's spine, the line that holds the city in balance. Stand on the chain bridge at sunset and watch the parliament glow gold across the water while Buda Castle watches from the hill. This is one of the most extraordinary urban landscapes on Earth, almost completely unknown to travelers. But what makes Budapest truly unique lies beneath the streets, one of the richest geothermal networks on Earth. Budapest sits atop one of the richest geothermal networks in the world. Over 120 natural hot springs feed thermal baths, operating continuously since the Ottoman Empire built them in the 16th century. The Gellert baths offer marble columns inside an Art Nouveau palace. Széchenyi spreads across City Park in neo-Baroque grandeur. On winter mornings, steam rises from outdoor pools while elderly men play chess in 38-degree water, their bodies floating as the city disappears into mist. This costs the same as a coffee elsewhere, but delivers luxury that wealthy people pay hundreds for at exclusive spas. These are public commons, not exclusive spaces, where geological gifts became public goods rather than commercial opportunities. In the early 2000s, young Hungarians took crumbling buildings in the Jewish quarter and transformed them into watering holes called ruin bars. The first, simpler Kurt, opened in 2002 as a converted courtyard filled with mismatched furniture and bathtubs as seating. Walk into Simpler on Friday night and step into a different relationship with space. No entrance fee, no exclusive areas, just graffiti-covered walls and projectors casting light. Drinks cost a third of Berlin or London prices. This is grassroots culture at its most vital. Beauty found in ruins without corporate backing. The movement has grown to over 30 establishments, yet remains authentically local. But Budapest also has Michelin-starred restaurants. And the shocking part is the price. Budapest holds 7 Michelin-starred restaurants that rank among Europe's finest, judged by the same standards as Paris or London establishments. Kostas, Stand, Babel, Borkonyha, each a masterclass in modern Hungarian cuisine. A full tasting menu at Borkonyha, located near St. Stephen's Basilica, costs approximately €55 to €65 per person. The same experience in London would cost €100 to €150. In Paris, €150 to €200. This is not lower quality. It is the same technical excellence at impossible prices. The difference is purely market conditions, not culinary standards. As more travelers discover Budapest, prices will rise, and this extraordinary value proposition will disappear. For now, it exists, but Michelin stars are only one measure of Budapest's culinary identity. The real food culture lies in wine regions waiting to be discovered. When people think of European wine, they think France, Italy, Spain, and completely miss Hungary, which is extraordinary because Hungary produces world-class wines for centuries. Lake Balaton stretches through vine-covered hills where volcanic soils produce dry whites, rivaling the Rhine. The Tokai region, a UNESCO site, produces golden Azu dessert wine that Louis XIV called the wine of kings and king of wines. In Eger's Valley of Beautiful Women, family cellars pour bull's blood directly from barrels for €3 to €5 per glass. Visit a family wine cellar and descend into caves cut from volcanic rock, where elderly winemakers serve wine their families produced for generations. This costs 1/10 of comparable tastings in Bordeaux. Hungarian wines are extraordinarily undervalued compared to French wines of similar quality. But wine is only one part of Hungarian culture. Hungary's contribution to global culture is extraordinarily disproportionate to its size. Béla Bartók revolutionized music by incorporating folk melodies into modernist compositions. László Moholy-Nagy became one of the most influential figures in the Bauhaus movement. The Rubik's Cube, invented by architect Erno Rubik in 1974, is the world's best-selling toy and sits in New York's Museum of Modern Art. These achievements shaped global culture, yet when people think European culture, they think French art, German music, Italian design, not Hungary. Bartók's music reveals something profound about Hungarian culture. It honors both innovation and tradition, finding wisdom in folk traditions while pursuing cutting-edge experimentation. This creative resilience survives in contemporary Budapest through ruined bars and thermal baths. Hungary achieved this without France's resources or Germany's economic power, surviving empires and wars while creating, not just surviving. But what makes Hungary significant now is not its past, it's its future. For 16 years, Viktor Orbán's Fidesz party controlled Hungary with increasingly authoritarian rule. Press restrictions eroded judicial independence, deepening ties with Putin's Russia. Hungary became a cautionary tale about democratic erosion. Then, on April 12, 2026, something unexpected happened. Péter Magyar, a former Fidesz insider turned opposition leader, led his pro-European Tisza party to landslide victory, winning 138 of 199 parliamentary seats on record 79.5% voter turnout. Orbán conceded by phone before a third of ballots were counted. That night, Budapest's chain bridge illuminated in Hungarian colors as champagne-soaked crowds celebrated beside the Danube. This was not just political victory. It was Hungarian citizens choosing democracy over authoritarianism, Europe over isolation, hope over fear. The election changes Hungary's global story from cautionary tale to democratic resilience. And that transformation creates the perfect moment for the world to discover what has always been there. When the sun sets in Budapest, the city transforms. The Parliament building glows gold against the night sky, a 96-meter dome illuminated by thousands of lights, so visually striking it seems impossible more people aren't planning trips to see it. The chain bridge reflects in the Danube, while Buda Castle sits lit on the hill. The entire cityscape becomes something between real and cinematic, too beautiful to be true. Standing on the bridge at midnight, you understand why artists and architects call Budapest the most beautiful city in Europe. You can see the layers of history: medieval Buda, commercial pest, Ottoman influence, Habsburg grandeur, Soviet occupation, post-Cold War transformation, all visible in the architecture, integrated into the contemporary city. Budapest's beauty is different from Paris or Rome because of the scale and integration, the way both banks of the Danube come together in a unified visual composition. If you want to understand Budapest, skip the landmarks. Sit in a cafe and eat langos, deep-fried dough dripping with sour cream and garlic, street food that costs €2 and tastes extraordinary. Visit the thermal baths where pensioners play chess in hot water. Spend afternoons in wine cellars tasting wines you've never heard of. This is the real Budapest, not optimized for tourism, not yet fully commodified. You can sit in a cafe for hours with €1-2 coffee and nobody hurries you. This authenticity has been erased from most major European cities. The moment the world fully discovers Budapest, prices will rise and character will change. For now, it remains a genuine place inhabited by real people, not a museum for tourists. But Budapest is not just beautiful, it is resilient. Hungary's story begins when Magyar tribes swept across the Carpathian Basin in 895 AD, forging a kingdom under King Stephen I by 1000 AD. That millennium of survival is written into every stone of Budapest. Mongol invasions, Ottoman occupation, Habsburg rule, 2 world wars, 40 years behind the Iron Curtain, the Holocaust, communist oppression. The city should have been destroyed, but instead created beauty from wounds. The thermal baths inherit from empires that occupied this space. The architecture hybridizes every power that ruled here. The culture synthesizes every force that tried to break it. On April 12, 2026, when Hungarians chose democracy over authoritarianism, they voted not because they had never lived under oppression, but because they had and knew exactly what they were rejecting. Hungary is Europe's most overlooked country, not because it lacks beauty, culture, or excellence. It is overlooked because the world has been looking in the wrong direction. Budapest rivals any European capital in beauty, exceeds most in authenticity, and costs 1/3 as much. The April 2026 election changed everything. Hungary stepped into the spotlight. This is the moment to discover what has always been there. This was about why Hungary is Europe's most overlooked country. You found a city as beautiful as Vienna or Prague, but 43% cheaper. Thermal baths, Michelin stars, ruin bars, wine regions, all ready to be discovered. If this made you want to visit Budapest, like and subscribe. What surprised you most about Hungary? Comment below.